Hey, it's Blade Brothers here. Before I do a new review, I thought I'd actually spend a little time to do sort of a precursor video. Um, just an observation. Recently, I've been, of course, as always, continuing with my collecting of knives and doing reviews. I did notice, though, that there has been a increase, or just overall, I'm noticing it, of these crossbar style knives on the market, like really flooding the market nowadays. So I thought I'd do a precursor and kind of talk about crossbar knives and kind of help with the understanding of what they are and things like that. So these three knives I've actually done reviews for already in prior videos, so I'll include links to those videos after this particular video. So this one is the Gerber Eyebrow Compact. It's an assisted opening. What's a crossbar knife? Well, yeah, there is confusion because of the different names. So in the case here, this is a Gerber. It doesn't actually have a specific branded name for it that I'm aware of. I think they might just call it a pivot lock, I think, or something of that nature. But it's basically crossbar. If you understand it, it's just the locking mechanism for the knife is right here around the pivot, and it's a full bar basically connected to this little mechanism here on both sides. So it's a full bar, if you can see it here, if I can zoom in. There, see that moving bar right there? So it is quite a solid construction in terms of a locking mechanism for a knife. This one is the Benchmade North Fork. They call their locking mechanism the Access Lock. But you can see here, it's also a crossbar. One major advantage of the crossbar lock is that it is really ambidextrous for opening and closing. It's hard for me. I'm not left-handed here, but like you can actually flick it with depressing the lock and then flick it open, and you can see here it's fully open, locked. There's no wiggle in the blade or anything. It's locked. But then I can close it easily with just flicking, with depressing the lock and then flicking here, and it will close. I guess I can do it easier with my right hand here, so I'll show it with my right hand. So there, flicked open, locked in place, and then closed. So, and it's fully ambidextrous, and this method is arguably safer than a liner lock, where when you're closing the blade, you know, if it was a liner lock, you'd have to position your finger here. So potentially, if you're not careful or paying attention, the blade could close on your finger. So it does have advantages over other lock types, and it's becoming really popular, I guess, you know, because of its capability to be ambidextrous and whatnot. And it comes in different styles and designs. This one actually has an assisted action, so there's a little spring to kind of flick. That's why the flick action is so easy here. This one, because of the spring, it's harder to like flick closed. You really have to just close it. So you can see there's like some resistance when I push up against here because it's the spring. But once it's locked in place. And then this one is the Hogue Sig Nitron K320. Hogue calls theirs the Eyebrow lock, but it's also just a crossbar lock, if you see here. Differing mechanisms. I mean, they you know, the spring, or how it's the tension, and the, you know, how easy it is to flick open or lock in place, and versus closing. Different designs have maybe different styles. But there's a lot of new knives that I have acquired that are this sort of crossbar lock mechanism. And, just wanted to introduce, how they differentiate from, say, your traditional, here's my Sigliner Lock, and it's a flipper, but it's not assisted. So you have to actually give it a little bit of a flick there. But you can see here, it's a liner lock. So arguably, if it didn't have the flicker here, that acts sort of as a guard, it could easily, your finger would be in this spot when you close, and you could potentially cut your finger. So, but this is a Elischwitz design, and it's very well made. So it has this guard. The finger flipper is actually a great guard, and plus there's that groove right here that feels really good in the hand. And when you actually close it, the guard keeps it from closing on your finger. You have to move your thumb out of the way, and then there. So safely closes. And it even has a little lock, so you don't, when you're actually open, it can lock in place. And it works pretty much like a fixed blade at that point. But yeah, so as you notice, like for some, when you actually depress the crossbar, the blade already starts to have, because the crossbar pushes up against the blade, so it actually gives it a little, so when you flick it open, it's a lot easier to flick open because there's already some sort of momentum facing outward. And then closing it, very smooth. So there we go. This one, the North Fork, you can see the blade doesn't move when you depress the pivot, or the crossbar, or their access lock, so to speak. So it does take a little bit more action to flick it out, and it takes a little bit to bring it in. You can kind of judge the sturdiness of the lock from there. Also, another thing to kind of pay attention to is whether or not the blade actually kind of hits any of the components here. If it's properly seated to the crossbar here. So you can't really see it from here because there's no spacer. But yeah, you can kind of notice if it actually, the feel here, you can see how when you move the blade, the crossbar is already moving with the Eyebrow lock. So, and then for this one, because there's a spring in there, so, but you can already kind of get that sense of resistance. So see, it bounces back. So yeah, so these are crossbar locking mechanism knives. Definitely very popular nowadays. So I will be reviewing other knives that use this mechanism. So I thought I'd give a precursor and kind of introduce this style of knife. And then going forward, when I'm reviewing the other knives, you can kind of have a little bit of a understanding about the mechanism. Certain brands call it differently though, so it's kind of weird that they don't refer to it as the same thing. Some call it pivot lock, some call it the Eyebrow lock, some call it the access lock. I think SOG calls theirs the XR lock, but it's similar. So yeah. All right. I hope you liked this video. As always, leave us some comments and subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for your ongoing support. Blade Brothers, signing off.